Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Reapyron, and today we're going to be doing another tier list. This is of Deep Rock Galactic Overclocks, and this time we're going to be talking about the Cryocannon. So, as you may or may not notice, one of these is not what it should be. Now the tuned cooler is no longer a clean overclock, it's a balanced overclock, so they did change it around a little bit. But other than that, all the rest of these remain the same in terms of both symbol and name. So we're going to be going through each of these, discussing each of them, and then ranking them accordingly. The Cryocannon has some weird overclocks to it, unlike the flamethrower, where the flamethrowers are very straightforward and are generally just an improvement to the flamethrower. These ones dramatically change the Cryocannon, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. So let's start out with our clean overclock, which is improved thermal efficiency. So improved thermal efficiency increases your tank capacity, which is always a good thing because you just get more ammo. And you have a you have a slower pressure drop rate. So you will be able to freeze things for longer before your gun loses pressure and can no longer spray ice at the enemies. I'm sorry if I get the pressure mixed up as well in this one and the flow rate, because it's so strange to me to be saying these, and sometimes I get them backwards in my head. So I think that's the way that it works. And this one's pretty straightforward. This one's good because you can take it with any build that you want to go with the Cryocannon. It helps it out a lot. Extra tank capacity and making sure that your gun is functional is always a good thing and never going to be a bad thing. This is honestly one of the Cryocannon's best overclocks. I would probably put this one up into A tier because there's really nothing bad about it. Our next one is the tuned cooler. The tuned cooler is our first balanced overclock, even though it shows it as the clean overclock, it is a balanced one. This one makes it so you get one more freezing power for your Cryocannon, so you can go from a maximum of 10 to 11, and it increases your flow rate, so the faster that you can spray out ice. But it does increase the charge time, so that you have to wait to use your gun. It takes about 0.2 seconds faster, which really isn't noticeable, but it is something. And this also makes it so your pressure drops faster. So if you keep spraying this, your weapon will be unable to keep firing. I'm just going to start saying overheating. It will pretty much overheat your gun, and your gun will need to then repressurize so that you can spray more ice. That's not a huge deal because you can take certain mods. I think there's one in tier 2 for the Cryocannon. I could be wrong. I'm forgetting which tiers the Cryocannon has, at least which abilities they have, that can pretty much cancel that out. You can also cancel out the charge up time. And the freezing power is the big seller on this one because you do freeze enemies much faster with this. It's surprising how much just one more freezing power does when you're freezing enemies. This one is probably the best overall overclock for the Cryocannon, since it just enhances its freezing ability, which is likely the main reason why you're taking the Cryocannon. The Cryocannon works really well for supporting the team and freezing enemies so that you or your teammates can kill them with other weapons. So this one makes the most sense to have because it's the most ammo efficient. The negatives are really not that bad for you, and the positives are pretty good. I would probably put the tuned cooler up into S tier. Up next we have flow rate expansion. This one's interesting. So you get pressure faster and you can spray out your ice faster, but your pressure will drop quicker too. So you can kind of overheat or unpressurize or depressurize, I guess, your gun faster than you normally would, but you can also get it back faster and spray it. This one feels like a weird balancing act. This one does noticeably change the way that your Cryocannon works. It's kind of hard to describe how it actually affects it, but it does affect it where you'll likely be spraying shorter bursts, but they'll be more impactful, but your gun can depressurize faster, and then you're unable to use it as much, but it can come back up quicker. So that's a different playstyle, and you can build the Cryocannon differently with this particular overclock. It's honestly not a bad one, but you do have to get used to it, and it makes for some more interesting builds for the weapon. So if you really want to change up your loadout or change the way that the Cryocannon works, this one might be a good option for you. Overall, it's kind of odd because if you get used to using the regular Cryocannon and then you switch to this, it feels much different and you play it differently. And I don't really care for that all that much because it makes it more difficult to switch back and forth between other overclocks. Most of the other overclocks for this don't change the basics of how the Cryocannon works, kind of. They just kind of add features or take things away from you. So this one I'm going to put into B tier. I don't think it's that bad, but I also don't think it's way great. It's just different. So I guess B tier is where it should be. Maybe? Alright, up next we have Ice Spear. Ice Spear is probably one of the coolest overclocks and one of the most interesting overclocks. This makes it so that you can have the Ice Spear, which you can use by reloading. This will cost 50 or 75 fuel to shoot a Ice Spear that'll do, I think, 350 damage upon hit, which is a lot of damage. But this does take time to charge up. It's not the most accurate. It does actually do splash damage, which is kind of nice. And once you use it, it completely depressurizes your freeze thrower. Or your cryocannon, sorry. So it has to repressurize back up before you can use it again. This also adds a 1 second repressurization delay. So once you overheat the gun or depressurize, however you want to look at it, you do have to wait longer before it will even start coming back up, which is kind of annoying. It's honestly not that much of a benefit. The Ice Spear does feel really good to hit most enemies with, although you don't want to be using it on things like grunts because you will run through ammo so fast with it. It's better saved for large enemies that are easy to hit. You might be able to do it on dreadnoughts. I was trying that, and that kind of works against some of the dreadnoughts. You can also kind of do it against oppressors, so long as you got a good shot on their back. Against Praetorians, you can definitely do it. And then the most common target that I found it was good against was Spitballers, because they can't move and it's easy to hit their weak spot. So in those instances, it was really cool. It is a fun way to use the Cryocannon, but it doesn't honestly give you all that much benefit from it. It's just kind of like an added feature to your Cryocannon, but you're also paying a price for it. So I think this one is also going to be in B tier. It feels so strange. It doesn't necessarily feel like an upgrade to the Cryocannon. It's just so inefficient to be using. Fun, yes, but inefficient for the most part. Maybe I'll actually put it down into C tier. I think C tier is actually a better spot for it because it is so bizarre. Alright, up next we have Ice Storm. And Ice Storm makes it so you deal double damage with the Cryocannon. You also deal double damage to frozen targets. Now this comes at a cost of -3 freezing power, -75 total tank capacity, and your pressure drop rate is increased, so you drop pressure faster by 150%. So you won't be able to hold down the trigger as long when you freeze enemies. If you freeze them, you will be doing more damage to them, but this makes it harder to freeze enemies, because you have less freezing power. This one is very strange, and honestly, I think that it's just a big detriment to the Cryocannon. It might make sense for somebody just to look at this and say that this could be really good, because if you have another driller using the Cryocannon, or maybe some scouts with cryo grenades, you could then kill enemies very quickly, but that's such a niche use for it, and you have to be relying on someone or multiple someone else's to effectively freeze things so that you can then kill them, and that's not really all that useful when you take into account the other person with the Cryocannon could just freeze things and then anybody else could fire at them and kill them with any other weapon. You don't need to have enemies completely frozen. Adding more damage to the Cryocannon doesn't really help it all that much because it does such low damage to begin with that this doesn't really increase it that much. Same with when you're hitting frozen enemies, it will kill them faster, but with your gun constantly depressurizing, it honestly doesn't really matter, and you reduce your overall ammo. I think this one's probably the worst one for the Cryocannon, and the one that I was the least impressed with. This one's going to D tier. It feels like it's more of a hindrance to the Cryocannon and goes against what the Cryocannon is good at doing. If you want just more damage, it makes way more sense to just switch over to the flamethrower. Even the base flamethrower without an overclock will do essentially this job, but better. And then our last one here is the Snowball. Now, Snowball is another really fun one, similar to the Ice Spear. This one makes it so you can shoot a snowball out. So you hit the reload button that you normally would, like with the Ice Spear. You charge up and you shoot out a snowball. This will hit kind of like a cryo grenade from the Scout, which will hit a single enemy or hit the ground wherever you hit it, and then will spread freeze out to everything. So you can freeze multiple enemies, and it's really strong against Mactera plagues. It's actually a really good overclock if you have that particular plague, because with one good snowball, you can freeze the swarm there, and they'll just fall right to the ground and die, which is really good. You just killed an entire swarm by yourself. On every other mission, it's not bad, but it's honestly not one of the greatest ones either. This comes at the cost of 100 less fuel for your Cryocannon, and you also get another 1 second repressure delay on it. So after you shoot your Snowball, you will have to wait for it to come back up before you can use the Cryocannon, either to use it as another Snowball or to use it regularly. This one I found best, at least when I was spraying it, to spray it to where it was almost empty, or almost, I guess, depressurized, then use the Snowball. It has some uses to it, and it is really fun, but honestly, it's not like a top-tier Overclock in terms of how useful it is. Unless, like I said, you're on Swarm, and then, or Plague, whatever it's called, and then it's actually not bad. It's actually a pretty legit Overclock then. I would put Snowball up into B tier. I think it's decent, and I think it has its uses, but it's not necessarily an upgrade to the Cryocannon. It's just an added something. It's very similar to like the Ice Spear in that way, where you're not trading off too much, at least trading off so much that you will be really hurting, but you're not getting a whole lot either. The Cryocannon is a very weird weapon. Like I said, the Overclocks change it dramatically. The best ones are honestly the ones that do the least amount to it, where it's just increased freezing or increased tank capacity. Both those are great. And then everything else is just whenever it messes with the base mechanics of the weapon is when it gets weird. And they're not usually as good for whatever reason. I guess it's just because the Cryocannon works so well at the job that it is supposed to do, that, you know, changing that makes it just not seem as good. Thanks everybody for watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did and you're not subscribed, be sure that you get subscribed. And if you would like to get added benefits like emotes and a badge by your name, you can do that by joining the membership program. It's just $1 a month. You'll also get your name added to this board here. Special thanks to everybody supporting right here. These are the members from my channel, as well as all of the patrons over on my Patreon. Once again, you can go over to Patreon and also donate just $1. You get access to early videos there too. So thank you guys so very much for watching this. I really do appreciate it, and I will talk to all of you guys next time. Till then, stay cool, and bye!